Mr. Speaker.
Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Mr. Speaker.
Thanks, Mr. Speaker.
Thank you very much, everyone, for being here today. Imagine you've just given birth to a newborn. Imagine you've just given birth to a newborn, and instead of enjoying this precious, once-in-a-lifetime moment, you smell hard drugs in the air. Crack or meth being smoked just a few hospital rooms over. Imagine you've been in a car accident, you're fighting for your life, and someone in the bed next to you lights up a crack pipe. You look down and see that that person has a large machete in their bag. You tell the nurse or the doctor, and they say, "Sorry, it's allowed now, and we've been forbidden from touching or taking away these weapons and drugs, so you're just going to have to hope that this person does not harm you." Now, this might sound like something out of a horror film, not from the real world. But unfortunately, after 9 years of Trudeau and the NDP, the real world is a horror film. Because what I just described is exactly what the BC Nurses Union has publicly reported. They have reported that members of their union were unable to breastfeed their kids because they had breathed in crack or meth smoke at work and were worried about the poison that might then have contaminated their breast milk. This is the almost hallucinogenic reality that 9 years of Trudeau and the NDP have caused. After 9 years of Trudeau, everything costs more. Work doesn't pay. You make it. Trudeau takes it. Housing costs have more than doubled. Here in Vancouver, if you take the average paycheck and try to pay the mortgage on the average house, it eats up more than 100% of your pre-tax income. So even if the average Vancouverite were to stop paying taxes, stop eating, stop taking a vacation, stop buying clothes, stop driving, stop doing anything else, they still wouldn't have enough out of their paycheck to make a mortgage payment every single month. Vancouver is now the third most overpriced housing market in the world. And Toronto has been declared the worst housing bubble on planet Earth after 9 years of Trudeau. After 9 years of Trudeau, we have the worst economic growth in the G7. Our per capita GDP has been falling now for 6 consecutive quarters. Canadians are earning $4,200 less than they were on track to earn before Trudeau. Per person, that's $17,000 per family. I say all of this because obviously, let's not be naive about it. The immense financial strain that people are under is contributing to the drug crisis that has exploded over the last 9 years. But we cannot ignore the fact that Trudeau and the NDP have imposed radical policies that made everything worse. They have decriminalized hard drugs, a mistake that the NDP has now admitted has contributed to the problem. They allowed crack to be smoked in parks next to kids. They allowed meth to be smoked on public transit next to seniors late at night when those our elderly were all alone. And of course, they allowed hard drug use and weapons in our hospitals. They continue to give out tax-funded opioids provided by the same companies that caused the crisis in the first place, who continue to profit off the misery, and the results are in. There is an increase of 380% in drug overdose deaths under these NDP Liberal policies. This radical ideological approach is killing our people. Now, it will be a while before we hold the carbon tax election, at which time common sense conservatives can choose a different path to bring home safety. In the meantime, we are determined to protect our hospitals from this Liberal NDP insanity. And that is why I'm here today, Since Trudeau formed government, over 4,200 Canadians have died of overdoses, a 400% increase in Nanaimo alone. The results have been catastrophic. The BC Nurses Union has reported that meth has been smoked in a unit just hours before the birth of a newborn baby. In northern BC, the Public Health Agency put out a memo telling hospital staff to allow patients to bring knives and other weapons into hospitals. This is the result of the wacko decriminalization Trudeau and the NDP brought in. 2 years ago, the Liberal government granted the BC NDP request to allow hard drugs across the province, including in public places. This reckless and radical and wacko policy has killed 2,500 British Columbians in 1 year alone. Meanwhile, community spaces like soccer fields and hospitals and city squares are devastated by crime. The Abbotsford Soccer Association had to comb through the field before the games to make sure there were no dirty needles, crack pipes, or other drug paraphernalia. British Columbians are seeing their pets have drug overdoses from sniffing dangerous substances that have been left in formerly idyllic and peaceful parks. Not only that, but now Trudeau is considering a request from Toronto to replicate his radical experiment with decriminalization. Enough is enough. Common sense Conservatives will not allow this devastation and this experiment to play out in other Canadian communities. Canadians deserve a government that will keep hard drugs out of hospitals and will protect staff and patients. We will pass the Safe Hospitals Act. It will create an aggravating factor for sentencing anyone who brings an illegal and unauthorized weapon into a hospital. 2, it will take away the discretion from the federal health minister under the Controlled Drugs and Substances Act to decriminalize illicit drugs like fentanyl and meth, crack, and heroin in hospitals. This means that if Trudeau grants Toronto or Montreal's request to decriminalize hard drugs, our hospitals will be protected. We will also push for the immediate passage of common sense Conservative MP Todd Doherty's Bill C-321, which will create an aggravating factor for assaults committed against healthcare workers and first responders. In other words, if you attack a nurse, a paramedic, or a doctor, you will go to jail for longer. To be clear, this common sense bill, the Safe Hospitals Act, will not apply to any drugs prescribed by medical professionals like doctors and nurses. The Safe Hospitals Act will stop some of the insanity that Trudeau and the NDP have unleashed in our communities. Not only that, we will give Canadians a choice in the next election between a costly coalition of Trudeau and the NDP that tax your food, punish your work, take your money, double your housing cost, and unleash crime, chaos, drugs, and disorder in your community. Or common sense Conservatives who will axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime. Now, let's bring it home. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll now have time for questions from the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Poilievre. Chuck Shing with the Canadian Press. Do you have any concerns that the province may push back regarding this being viewed as a curb on their jurisdiction in hospital settings? And how do you plan to react to that if there is pushback from the provinces? Thank you.
They might. The NDP and Trudeau are equally radical on these questions, but I'd leave it up to British Columbians. Do British Columbians believe that someone should be allowed to smoke crack, meth, and bring machetes into hospitals right next to patients who are trying to recover from cancer or a heart attack? Or do they believe in my common sense approach that would ban the drugs, stop giving out tax-funded opioids, and instead invest in treatment and recovery to bring our loved ones home drug-free?
Thank you. Next question.
Hey, Ethan Sawyer, CBC News. Federal conservatives have been skeptical of the billions in taxpayer money backstopping electric vehicle manufacturing. Would you cancel these investment tax credits?
We always look at Justin Trudeau's many promises and we judge them not on what he says, but what actually happens. My platform will axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime. And it will also reform our tax system to bring home the hundreds of billions of dollars of jobs, businesses, and opportunities that Trudeau's radical policies have driven abroad. We will bring home powerful paychecks by green-lighting major projects with faster approval times. We will approve major resource projects in this country rather than bringing in the resources from dirty dictators. We will cut taxes in small businesses for job creators, and we will allow Canadians to pay less and bring home more. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question.
Hi, Mr. Poilievre. Would a Poilievre government cancel the effective raise in capital gains tax?
There isn't one right now. So we're going to see what Justin Trudeau again has promised something. Looks like he's backing down. He's taken the promise out of his budget, and with only a month to go, still no legislation. So what we know is that whenever Justin Trudeau raises taxes, it's waitresses, barbers, shop floor, manufacturing workers who pay the price. Remember, he said that he wouldn't raise taxes on the middle class. 80% of middle class Canadians are paying higher income tax than when Trudeau was first elected. He said his carbon tax would never go up more than 11 cents a litre. And now it's up to 17 cents, headed to 61 cents a litre. He said his deficits would never be bigger than $10 billion and they'd be gone in 3 years. Well, here we are, $600 billion and an inflation crisis later. That promise is in smithereens on the floor as well. I always find it interesting when the media comes to me and says, Justin Trudeau has promised a utopia. Are you going to remove his utopia if you get elected? Well, let's see this utopia first. So far, it has, the word utopia, ironically, in ancient Greek means no place. And no place has Justin Trudeau followed through on any of his promises. Justin Trudeau is not worth the cost, the crime, and corruption. And we will replace him after the carbon tax election with a conservative government that will axe the tax, build the homes, fix the budget, and stop the crime.
Thank you. This will be the final question.
Sorry, Mr. Poilievre, the federal government has already approved BC's request to roll back the use of public drugs in public places, I believe, including hospitals. How does your proposed legislation differ on that front in terms of how does your policy differ in terms of addressing that issue in addition to what's already being done?
Well, first of all, it would ban the minister from ever granting decriminalization of hard drugs, illicit drugs, unauthorized drugs in hospitals. My worry is that Trudeau will do it again. Remember, when he first ran in 2015, he said it was all disinformation when we suggested he was going to allow hard drugs. Well, it turned out it wasn't disinformation. So now he has a request from Toronto, from Montreal, to decriminalize drugs in other places. And we believe that he will do that if he gets the chance. And we're saying we're not going to let him. We will not allow Justin Trudeau to decriminalize hard drugs, illegal, unauthorized, unprescribed drugs like crack and heroin in Toronto, Montreal, British Columbia, or any other hospitals across the country. Enough with the radical, wacko drug legalization. Let's get back to a common sense plan to ban the drugs, treat addiction, and bring our loved ones home drug-free. Thank you.